Bonjour. Good morning, everybody. Minogaship. We're going to get started here with the TEC meeting here in beautiful Grand Portage, and welcome everybody. Welcome delegates. Lots of delegates today. Nice to see you. And welcome guests. Kind of trying to round the troops up here. These things I gotta put a little closer. Hey Lenny, is this okay? Chairman Deschamps did tell us yesterday he will be a little late this morning, so we'll get started. We will call the meeting to order at 8:35 a.m. And as always, we start our meetings out in a good way. We will have invocation this morning by Billy Blackwell.
Here, this one, I just turned this one on somehow.
Turn it off.
Gotta be a lawyer.
Well, now that I'm an attorney, thank you, Phil. We will start with a roll call, please. Beth?
See, theirs is red.
Yeah.
This one's works.
All right, okay.
Oh, magic fingers.
A hard punch.
Okay, the mics are a little temperamental right now. Okay. April McCormick, Secretary Treasurer, Grand Portage. Farron Jackson, Chairman Leech Lake. Leonard Fine Secretary Treasurer, Leech Lake. Kevin Dupas, Chairman, Fond du Lac. Robert Abramowski, Secretary Treasurer, Fond du Lac. Michael Fairbanks, Chairman, White Earth. Michael LaRock, Secretary Treasurer, White Earth. Robert Dishop, Chairman, Grand Portage. And Chief Executive, Melanie Benjamin, Mille Lacs. Sheldon Boyd, Secretary Treasurer, Mille Lacs. Yep. He has signified with a wave. Tara Gishik, Secretary Treasurer, Bois Fort.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Kathy Chavers.
Oh, I can see this is going to be a great meeting. Lots of humor. Okay, next we have a quorum. We have approval of the agenda. Oh God, Beth? He's here. He'll be added on. Yeah. Just
I got two of them on.
Okay, we have two additions to the agenda. Eli Dots under new business and Adam Fairbanks and Eli Dots are together. Okay.
Okay, that's under new business. That's Prime West. Any other items on the agenda? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda with those, that addition.
Second.
Moved by Melanie, seconded by Lenny. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Excuse me. Next, we have the minutes from the January 11, 2024 regular meeting.
Madam President, there's no other questions or motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Lenny to approve. excuse me, the minutes of the January 11, 2024 regular meeting.
Second.
Second by Melanie. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Sorry. We'll speak louder. You're welcome. Okay, next we have resolutions, and I believe they're all enrollment resolutions. And we would like to do a consent agenda on the enrollments. Resolutions. Resolution 56-24 to resolution 75-24.
I'll move to consent agenda. I'll move to consent agenda.
Motion made by April McCormick. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Melanie. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Next, we have quarterly reports, which were given in the subcommittee meetings yesterday, so we will acknowledge and acknowledge and receive those reports this morning. And so we'll move on to next, Patty Olby, Deputy Regional Director, and Heidi Gordon, Superintendent, Minnesota Agency. In here? Oh, there's- Okay, come on up. I recognize Patty with her hair.
Okay.
On the Florida. Here, I'll sit over here.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. I haven't been here in a while. As your former superintendent for Minnesota Agency, I'd like to introduce our new superintendent for Minnesota Agency, Heidi Gordon. So Heidi, if you want to give a little bit of your background.
Hey, Buju, I mean, I don't have to, oh, okay. My, okay, my name is Heidi Gordon. I am the new superintendent, as Patty explained. I am a enrolled member of the Red Cliff Band. Across the way a little bit. I have about 32 years of experience, and I am looking forward to working with everyone. All the tribes, this is something new to me, so be patient at first. And I sure hope if anyone has any questions, please feel free to contact me at any time. I will pass around my business cards if Patty is giving her report. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Great. Since this is Heidi's first meeting, I do have a little bit of a report on behalf of the region. So at Minnesota Agency, we have filled a couple of the vacancies. We have an office automation assistant position that was filled. We also have a realty specialist position that was filled, much needed. Yep. At the regional office, we have filled the budget officer position. Tanya LaFrondos is her name. Don't quote me on her last name on how you say that. But she filled Priscilla Westland, who just retired. We also filled a regional biologist position. A selection was made, but they haven't come on board yet. Vacancies at the Minnesota Agency, we currently have contact rep position to be filled. It's been advertised 7 times. 7 times now, and we don't have any applicants. This is an entry-level position. So please, if pass on USA Jobs. I know we pass out the vacancy announcements. But yeah, we are having a hard time getting bodies in. Also, career fairs. if any of you are having career fairs, please invite us. We would love to set up a booth and talk about what BIA does and the good work. I know we all realize at BIA we carry a bad reputation, and no kid ever grows up saying, I want to work for BIA, but we all get it. We all get it. But trying to change that around, with Indian preference and getting Indian people on this side of the fence. So really working hard to change that around. We did attend the Native American Higher Education Conference in St. Paul, and we did have interest in kids working for BIA. So we're making some progress there. We've been invited to do a booth at Menominee and Prairie Island in June. So we're getting out there. So again, just let us know and we can be there with our booth. Another thing that we're doing is we're doing landowner workshops. You may have heard me talk about that way back in the day, pre-COVID, when I was superintendent. These have been very successful in providing information to owners of fractionated interest and what that means. We talk about the history. It's a 4-hour session, a 4-hour workshop that we provide for free. We've done it at the Leech Lake Urban Office twice. I think we had 140 people there in 2 different sessions. We also did it at the new BIA office in Bemidji. We've done it in Ashland, Wisconsin. We've done it at Fond du Lac. As Le Coudray was most recent. But we really the only thing that we need to put on this workshop is just a place to do it. We bring everything in. We have our speakers. We even have our presenters, our screens. We have everything that we need, but we just need a space. And we'll do all the promotion and everything for it. So those have been very successful. Feed a trust cases. We have 206 cases at the region. 126 of those cases are with the 3 agencies. We have 2 cases that are appealed from the region and 30, and I think 9 that are on appeal at the agency. 38 cases have been accepted. That means that they've been signed off on, but they haven't been recorded yet because we can't close them because we still need the recorded deed and or the final title evidence, the final title commitment. So once we get those, we can wrap those up and close those cases. But 38 of them are kind of stuck in a pending status. So each quarter, what we do is we send out quarterly reports on the status of all of your Feed a Trust applications. So take a look at those and see if they're moving along quarter to quarter and see if we might not be waiting, or we might be waiting for something to finish those off.
I have a question on that.
Yep.
So who do you send those quarterly reports to?
Quarterly reports are sent to the tribal leaders.
Okay, we get them? Okay. And then is there any talk or at the agency to help speed up the process? Because we're having to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars each year in taxes, and it's waiting for this stuff to happen and maybe not having access ourselves to do the research, to help along. Anyway, that process can change would.
Right. So we're bound by the 25 CFR 151, the regulations that guide us and tell us what we need to do. So a change in those regulations, anytime you see something being sent out for comment on those, because if that changes how we do things. So I believe those were just revised, was it last year or the year before? But they maybe 2 years ago, but they come up for review every now and then, but that's the one to look for. So part 151 is the one that guides us, as well as anytime we're revising handbooks and whatever, but the regulations are stronger than any handbook out there. So watch for commenting on those.
Is there travel consultation or you just send out?
It's just revision of the regulations. I believe there is.
I think so.
Yeah, that I'm not sure. I'm
Okay,
pretty sure
so-
that there is. We're really good about consulting on any regulation changes, so. We schedule, normally when we do consultations, what we'll do is we'll set up places within the United States and set up meetings and we'll put it out there. Like I have a couple of announcements for tribal consultation that's coming up too. And those notices are sent to the tribal leaders whenever there's tribal consultation. So. Well, yesterday. I have no idea. This was about, it's all over the country. Yeah, it's for all 574 federally recognized tribes. So there's consultation happening quite a bit. Okay.
They send the notices out. They do their consultation by, the feds do their consultation by Zoom or Teams or whatever, and it's to all tribes within the United States. So we're notified when there's consultation with the BIA, yes.
And also, they do it by region also, so you may have where all the tribes are included in one call or one consultation, and then you break it down to regions also, so.
Thank you. All right, so for the next thing I have is Partners in Action. So save the date for that. We have it scheduled for August 6th through the 8th. This year it will be somewhere in Wisconsin. So we take turns with our states and we go out for bids. So we're waiting to, I think, just get the conference approved at this point because it has grown so big. It has to go at a higher level to get approval now. So we're just waiting for that, but we have our team ready to roll. But yeah, mark your calendars, August 6th through the 8th. Tribal consultation, upcoming tribal consultation. We have ICWA consultation, 5/14. That's going to be in Green Bay. We have a consultation on orphaned wells grant opportunity. Oh, I guess this is just a deadline. The deadline is May 4th. And then we have consultation on scientific integrity consultation policy. That's done virtually. They had one on that yesterday, but they have another one on the 26th and the 30th. Also, I just want to remind everyone that the regional director does have monthly tribal leader calls. She started those before the pandemic and just like a check-in, like a weekly check-in. I think at that time we were doing weekly because of the pandemic. Then it went to every other week, and now she's decided to keep that ongoing on a monthly basis. So just watch your calendar invites for those. Those are done virtually or by call-in. And that's end of report for me. Any questions?
Right.
You have it.
Oh, hey Patty. Good morning. You know, we had some discussions yesterday in our Natural Resources Committee about TIPO and SHPOs. That how these logging industry can come onto a reservation and disturb, you know, our medicines, our meshkiki, you know, and not follow processes. I know we've been diligently working with DNR on some different issues, and you know, I know that we're gonna, as our trustee, you know, that we gotta sit down. I think all of us have to sit down with you and discuss this. I know that we talked about this too, about our treaties, and we talked about the 90 years that some of these state forests have been in existence and how they've been coming onto our lands and taking what they want and not giving us nothing back. Even in our traditions, you know, with
my went here, Billy Blackwell, you know, even thinking about even the old ways when they come take and not give nothing back, it's something that, you know, I think these are things that we take seriously. And I know that, it's not always us, it's our ancestors, our spirit, our great spirit that, you know, helps and protect us too, but I know that, we're gonna have to ask for your assistance here sooner than later, so. I know that, we'll probably be getting you a letter here probably, I mean, the next few weeks, sending you an official letter, so. But I know that, but that's one thing I know the other tribal leaders that are sitting with me here that have a lot of concerns too about this, so. Miigwech, Miu.
Okay, go ahead, April.
So welcome to Heidi. Very nice to meet you today. What we do now with our quarterly reports is we request them in writing for the record for the minutes. So if you would email those to Jane, she'll put them in our packets. And so Patty, if you wouldn't mind just typing out your bullet points, we write notes, but it's helpful if it's all there for the TEC to refer to. So thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. Welcome, Heidi. Thank you, Patty. Miigwech. That is for IT. It follows whoever's talking for the camera. Welcome, Mr. Deschamps. Okay, next we have update constitutional reform meetings. Cheryl Edwards and Sally Fine. Constitution reform. Hello. Hello. No, it's kidding. I'm sorry, just.
Madam President, I have a question. Is it okay if we add our Constitution delegates to give an update also? Okay, thank you.
We already accepted her. Yeah. She's, Cheryl's out of the office today, so, she's having family matters going forward, so, Patty and I will do the presentation. So it's a written document and I'm just gonna go through and. Oh, okay. Okay, Miigwech. The drafting committee has restructured documents. Their governance items have been, the governance items have been removed from the alliance document and need to be written into separate constitutions. It's just information that's governing language that each tribe can use for their local constitution. The delegations are at various stages in their process of writing their constitutions. Go ahead, you can do the next.
Progress on the education curriculum. We're still in the progress of completing the video sessions for each reservation, each band. The majority of the sessions have had the first drafts completed. The next step is editing the videos to fit the agreed timeframes. Upon completion of the final video and approved by the full delegations, scheduling the training sessions will be the next step. We anticipate late spring or early summer startup on the education curriculum.
Very good. The informational flyers, I brought one of them with today and I'll hand it out later to whoever is here. It's on sovereignty. It's just so that, you know, every document that we produce, we want to produce it so that everybody gets the same information. We can send it home to all the tribal nations in the same language. We have, currently, we don't have any specific timelines established for things as far as drafting, but every time we get something out there, it takes a long time because we have 6 tribes and 6 voices at the table making a consensus on this is a good language.
Do I have to do anything?
I can do the next report.
Okay, the delegate handbook, that we're in the process of creating a handbook identifying the delegations, working progress and decision making. The first draft has been completed and we are currently seeking input, revisions and deletions from the full delegation. Want me to continue?
Go ahead.
Questions were sent via email to the TEC members along with an invitation to attend our convention meeting on last Friday, April 19th, 2024 in Walker. No, TEC member attended, so no questions were answered. And also an email was sent to Joel Smith with demographic questions. We received his response on April 19th. Chimigwich, Joel.
So the questions that were, we asked, and we all understand, everybody here is busy. We've all got jobs. We all work really hard at doing that. So just want to say that we understand. Times are flying by. The questions that we had to ask though, I put forward in the document, and I think we all have these questions. I think one of the most important ones that we kind of have big discussions over is, it says, are you willing to argue that previous practices could be used in an upcoming election because something other than 30% was used previously? That's the one significant question of this all these questions. Go ahead. Wait, just gonna share this around then.
Yeah, so the answer is yes, that's a policy choice that needs to be made by the TEC. So right now, the standing policy, from my understanding, that was adopted through a motion, is that 30% means all eligible voters, including those who don't register. I do recognize and acknowledge that there is an alternative way to do it, which we've done in the past, that was more following the 25 CFR requirements for secretarial elections. So in those elections, 30% is calculated based on who actually registers to vote. So it's there is a quirk there that, yes, the answer is yes, there is another way to do that. It's just the policy right now from the TEC, the last time I heard, was that 30% means all eligible voters.
I think the point that we want to make with that is that's how we, with anything, any kind of secretarial election, we expect you to follow precedent. I think that's really about it. Some of the requests for actions are on the next page.
The request for action from the MCT delegates is today the delegates asked that to TEC, do your work. The delegates' task is to frame a new constitution that answers the questions posed. Fond du Lac has made a motion. The delegates will inform the TEC pursuant to the MCT Constitution. The TEC is obligated to make a resolution to add the 2022 referendum questions to the next secretarial election. We voted on that, or the motion was seconded by Sally Finde. The vote was Bois Forte, yes. Fond du Lac, yes. Grand Portage, yes. Leech Lake, yes. Mille Lacs, yes. White Earth, no. Referendum question number 2 is inconsistent with question number 1 and is generally confusing. An ordinance may not amend the MCT Constitution. We do not have the language in our Constitution to use an ordinance in this way. Regret.
I just want to point out that, in the first paragraph, it sounds really gruff and rough. We're not saying that gruffly or roughly. We're just saying that, every time we help out, it takes our minds off and then we get astray. We just had 3 meetings where we had argued profusely about supermajority vote, and we kind of came to a conclusion that from now on, we're not going to argue about that. We're just going to let it lie. And then whoever voted that way, that's the way you voted. We're not going to argue anymore. We've got a job to do and we're so close to getting done. I brought the draft 11 of the Alliance document. That's here today. The documents in the writing in red is the most recent changes. What we did is we took the governing language out of that document. I also brought important, valuable questions that the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe delegation brought to the table, and we answered those. And I think it's written questions from Mille Lacs, but there's some really valid legal information in that document. And I think it's a good opportunity for all of us to get that information. And I also brought the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe's draft 10 of our constitution. We work weekly on it as much as we can weekly. But the information I brought is open to all the other tribes to use the language, to follow suit, whatever. We share everything at our delegation meeting. Miigwech. Yes. It's not to dissolve. It's actually to replace. Because number one, Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe did a study, and it's a very in-depth study, and they determined that the Minnesota Chippewa tribe is not a tribe, that it's an organization. And in fact, I'll speak in a minute. Okay, sorry. I just I like to be able to speak and talk before you interrupt. So that's the point. The point is our work is to reform the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. And that's what this committee has been tasked with, and that's what these delegations are doing. It's not to dissolve anything. It's to revise and reform the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. So therefore, we have an alliance document that's coming forward that will treat everybody like we already are. We're an alliance. Minnesota, the White Earth doesn't tell Leech Lake what to do. Leech Lake doesn't tell White Earth what to do. You know, it's who we are already. We're just putting it into the proper format so that everybody has an opportunity to lay out, here's our laws at Leech Lake. Here's what we do. This is how we do it. And we don't expect anybody to be the same, but we expect people to do their due diligence in reforming the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. It's not to replace it. It's not to dissolve it. It's not going to say, go on, get out of here, MCT. All you take your staff and get. That's not what we're saying. In plain language, we're saying we're replacing. You can, that's fine. Miigwech.
My name's Bobby Steve. Thank you. My name's Wabi Skibanese, also known as Gerald Libby Senior. White Earth Band. To me, this constitution that we got right now is rigid. But Marv Penny would always say it's a rigid constitution. There's a process to follow called a referendum process, which should be used, you know, instead of interpretations, you know, and the orders that got in place already. To me, they are usurping in all of our rights. That's what they did. It's called usurp and take by, you know, by force or just take. That's what happened there. But anyways, I'm here, you know, the delegation needed some help to come up, you know. To me, this constitution is rigid, like I said, but these are some of my ideas for my family members, you know, I can only speak for them. There are around 45,000 old members in our tribe, and none of these band members, not all use their treaty rights, right? 45,000 of them live out throughout the United States. How many live on a reservation approximately, you know? I don't know, I'm just throwing these ideas out there. That being said, we could create a system so that eighth bloods could harvest and gather under our current treaty rights. Make slots available for every family members, so long as they live on a reservation. Or for example, I could stay home and let my eighth blood relative use my rights. No, that's sovereignty. I'm just throwing this out there, some crazy ideas, but another thing, I hear a lot of talk about adoption. So I'm 50%, 57% or 37/64 bloodline. Being sovereign that I am, I could adopt that out, my blood, I feel. That's just one of my thoughts. And so I'm done having, this is crazy, you guys are laugh about this. Well, since I'm done having children, I'm older right now, you know, I could give half my blood away. I don't know. I'm just saying this, I know it's a crazy idea, you can laugh, you know, but just throwing this shit out there, man. Or a blood transfusion, take half my blood, you know. This is crazy, I know you all gonna laugh at this, but what else we got? No one else is bringing nothing up except for, you know, what you just presented here. It's a new constitution or whatever it's gonna be. So most likely we're gonna be short, you know, so we can make slots available, like a lottery drawing, to utilize them, right? That's all I'm saying, you know, because I haven't heard nothing from White Earth they're gonna change anything, except for go forth and it's all Minnesota Chippewa tribe. That's all I got to say. Thank you. You're good.
Check. All right. I just wanna, is this on?
Yeah.
I just kinda wanna chime in today too. This is really getting, when I speak today, I don't mean to disrespect anybody, cause that's not the way, I am. But this is getting, it's very confusing here. Every time we kind of gather and we talk about, what we're trying to accomplish here. And then you read a lot of the paperwork that comes before the TEC. And then it really gets confusing here, and it's with this request for action. It says today the delegates ask that the TEC Executive Committee do your job. And the delegates' task is to reframe our new constitution. See, when this was first started, what is it, 7 years ago? The TEC members were told to be hands off. We weren't invited to the meetings. And that's the reality of what happened. And like I said, I stepped into a couple meetings, and not as a chairman of Leech Lake, but as a concerned grandparent of the MCT. Sometimes, we unfortunately wear more than two hats, and that's the way it is, but we come there as members of the MCT, not as the chairman of the reservation. And our intent is not to micromanage or dictate any of the direction that the delegates are going in. And I haven't seen any progress with this delegation committee. And I look at this delegation committee as a resource, as assets. A lot of grassroots people are involved in this delegation committee, and they're very, very intelligent members, grandparents, foster parents. Leech Lake is stance on, and it has been for some years now, that we want to step into and act and take some action on resolution 3215 as a sovereign tribe from Leech Lake. What the other 5 tribes want to do, that's their prerogative. But we talk about sovereignty. Okay, when do we want to apply that? We shouldn't use that word if we're not gonna, if we don't know what it means, and if we're not gonna abide by it. We're getting older and older here as we move from year to year, and we have lost a lot of our elders, a lot of our relatives, and they've been passing on, being frustrated by a system that was put in place by the federal government. And we're sitting here today and trying to figure out how to untangle this big ball of barbed wire that we're in with the 6 tribes. You talk about you want to do things uniformly, that we all have to have a cookie cutter approach to everything we do. That's a bunch of nonsense. We're a sovereign tribe. We want to exercise our self-determination rights. And we can still be a part of the MCT. We shouldn't have to come here to ask permission to do what we want to do on our respective 6 tribes. 2 tribes enacted a ban on transfers. And that was their right as a sovereign nation. Whether I disagree or not, that's not my decision. That comes from them, that tribal council and their members. So we want to enact 3215 that was passed by the TEC in 2015. What is that, 9 years ago? And we haven't even did anything about anything yet.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't like to get frustrated, you know, I'm always been a kind of a visionary person that thinks to the future. I'm not the, you know, I'm not the brightest guy on this TEC. You know, but thank you, Irene. Good to see you again too. But yeah, I mean, I talked about like 3 years ago, I talked about putting some timeframes in place for this delegation committee. You know, let's put some realistic timeframes when we're gonna be completing this constitution reform process. It's 14 pages. It's 14 pages. It's not the Webster's dictionary. So I think, with the group we have together here, I think we could make some headway. And let's set some realistic timeframes when we can have a draft for our memberships to vote on. A couple drafts, A, B, and C, and let's take a referendum and vote on this. That's what we have to do, folks. Amigos.
Go ahead, Bill.
But I really sick with the bullet and stuff, but I'm gonna put everything right in. I listened. Here's where it's at. The Constitution says you have to have 30% to change it. How many voters is that? 11,000. Correct?
Yep.
11,000. Whiter won by 2,000 some whatever to do that. They came in and removed the chairman and stuff and said it is illegal. Yes, but Whiter, we voted for it. It has to go through all sticks. However, I will stop here now. I'd like this man, or me. He said, I think within, but they have their attorneys will have to look at it and said, I think within we can change it. I don't know, but it's gotta be signed by BIA, Department of Interior, and all the way out. So you show how you think it can be changed.
Me glitch, Bill. I made a statement the last couple meetings that I didn't want to go over this stuff again because I've been saying it for a very, very long time. Too long, to be honest with you. A few TEC meetings ago, I told myself I didn't want to, and I told everybody that I didn't want to continue to say this and go over this and over this because I've been saying it for so long. But now that the elder asked me to speak on it, then I'm gonna speak freely. But before I do, can I ask a question to the delegations who made this statement up here about the referendum vote? Can you guys reiterate that statement that one of the vote was illegal? The referendum vote that just happened. That's where I'm going with this. Okay.
But where we're coming from, where the referendum that was voted on by 7,000.
No, it's gonna be quick.
Did not meet the threshold, the criteria of the Constitution. And that's where we have problems with at Whiter. We would like to, in our statement as when we voted, to go ahead with 3215, that's the beginning of this conversation. This isn't the end. This is a start. We need to educate our members so that we can look at this out there in the future. That's where we're coming from. We don't mean to be negative about this or anything. We just want to give our members the opportunity to have their input. We have solicited options already, so that's, we have a community meeting on the 15th of May. So we're gonna discuss some of those options and where we're
we would like to go with them in the future and to have, have their say, their input in this, topic. It's very contentious at times, but, that's where we're coming from. But
Hey, Gwitch, and I'm not trying to say anything in a bad way, because that's not what I'm doing, and I want to try to make this as quick as I possibly can. Statement of the two things that were on the referendum, one is to take blood quantum away, right? The second one was to have the individual band or reservations determine their membership, right? So if one overrides the other, like blood quantum, once blood quantum's moved, that's it. So when I said this open to the public for a very long time. So let's take a look at how we put the things in place. To Chairman Jackson's point, is that if we know one is going to override the other one completely, why have the other one? But I was told to stay out, and I kept my word to stay out of this. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert on anything, because I'm not. But I do have a little experience that I've learned from the guys who came before me and women who came before me. But as long as that point is still there, that the TEC should stay out, then I believe nothing should be brought to the TEC until it's completed for that final move to a certain extent. And I think, I can't speak for Chairman Jackson, but I think that's exactly what he's kind of getting at. So again, and I'll ask the question again, do you want us involved or not? Because some say, yeah, but the initial statement is, oh, we don't want you guys involved. So I kept my word with that, not to be involved with it. I want to go back to real quick with, and I'll go to what Billy said. In the Constitution, there's two requirements for enrollment. You must be at least 1/4 blood an American citizen, right? So to change principles in the Constitution, is it required a secretary election to change its minimum? To lower it, right? But not raise it, because you're within the parameters. And I've been saying it for 25 years. That would have been the simplest thing to do 20-some years ago. And I've been bringing it up almost every meeting. And if it were to require a secretary election to do that, it's one secretary election. November 15th, 2015, the BIA turned around and says they are looking for the tribes to exercise their sovereignty. Eliminate the Secretary Treasurer or Secretary of Interior from your Constitution if you choose. Or to have a secretary election, to have no more secretary elections. And I've said this over and over, and it's recorded in almost every meeting. What are we doing? What are we doing? We have a voting process that already exists within the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. Do we or do we not? Do we or do we not? So to have a secretary election, to have no more secretary elections, right? And I'm not trying to be mean, and I hope nobody's taking this in any ill intentions whatsoever. But we get hollered at, we get blamed that we don't know what we're talking about. Do your jobs. That's what we're told. That's what we're told. I want everybody to read the Constitution and look at what the Constitution says. For 20-some years, we could have built a brand new Constitution by enforcing it, by putting ordinances under the articles, but we chose not to do that. We chose not to do that. We chose not to go into that movement, therefore. Instead, and I don't disagree with it, to go into a constitutional convention. But you can still strengthen the document that exists before you put a new one in place, and we've done nothing to do that. Except come back to each one of us and holler and say, nobody's doing their job. You guys aren't doing your job. You have the ability to strengthen a document right now until you're finished with the new one that you want to implement. Use the existing Constitution to your advantage. It allows you to do that. It allows you to do that. I don't know any other way to say it. And then honestly, and I'm glad that Mille Lacs did that, to this one simple thing. If you read the Constitution and you read the IRA, it tells you right then that the Minnesota Chippewa tribe is not a tribe. You don't need an assessment. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars. This is our history. And my mentors who most of them are gone, have been saying it for longer than I have. And we have the documents in front of us. It's the simple principle of looking at what they're saying. What can we do with inside the structure of our own Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution? We can build a very strong document right now until the other work is done. It doesn't take a lot of work to do that. It's just a thought process. That's all it takes is a thought process, but it has to come from the people. It has to come from the people. Again, it has to come from the people. Nothing has come to the TEC for change or principles in any way, shape, or form, except a couple of resolutions that should have been moved forward a long time ago. Whatever reservations, their opinion is this or that, the collective body made a decision and that's the move on it. We had to vote 4 times and I told the TEC I'm not going to vote anymore on it. But then by me saying that, it's a jeopardizing the Fond du Lac band because I'm supposed to represent the band, but also the 40,000 plus members of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. So how many times do we have to vote on something? And if the yes vote is continued, it doesn't make any sense. All it does, and no disrespect to anybody, myself or anybody in the audience, it makes us look incompetent if we have to continue to vote on something that we've already voted on once. But again, this comes back to the people. What are your choices? What do you want to do? And how do you want to do it? We can build a document. If the enrollment is the hardest thing that needs to be done, does it make sense to stay on that the whole time instead of building a document that is able to enforcement and put all this stuff into place? Or do we want to go back years ago? Neeb is here, Jerry Libby, Billy Blackwell, and others who've been there before, knowing the same thing happened, to get stuck on enrollment and not move forward and take care of anything else that needs to be taken care of. You still have the ability to build a structure. You still have the ability to enforce the existing document right now the way that it should be enforced for a movement. We're the only group of people, I think, who has not progressed in moving forward on a document that governs. Interpretations are one thing, but that's not the change of the people. That's a change of the body. We have not progressed from that point. Does anybody know how many secretary elections or actual amendments to the Constitution have happened? 4. But we got 15 interpretations. 4, that's it. And none of the 4 have moved forward on this one thing that we're talking about today again. Enrollment. Again, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not mad at the coworkers I work with here. But since Billy threw me under the bus and the bus ran over me, I just got to make my statements. It's in front of us, you guys. It's in front of us. And we have the ability to strengthen a document right now until the new one gets built. Use it to our advantage, what we believe that needs to be put into place. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Kevin. Sally?
Like I said, I
Here.
apologize for that written first one because it makes it sound like everybody's not doing their work, but in fact, everybody's doing their work. And that's why we're all moving forward. That's why we're developing what the documents that we have. And I do want to say too that I firmly believe that the TEC should be actively involved in writing these constitutions at your homeland, because you of all people know how the governance certainly is and how we can make it better. And at Leech Lake, we have a team of people that work diligently to get the information out. In fact, I forgot to ask one question, is what's happening with 3215? Are we going forward with that? Is it, we came here to ask that today and I didn't even ask that second question.
It's on the agenda.
Okay, miigwech.
Miigwech, good discussion, good discussion. Okay, we'll move on with legal. No, we're moving on with legal. Okay, we want order here, please. Irene, yes, go ahead. Okay, all right. We have started constitution reform for how many years, and they're given updates at every meeting. So, we're trying to do as much as we can with regards to getting information out. That's part of the problem, I think, is that first off, they're working on an educational component with the Constitution because not a lot of people understand it, but they're also trying to move forward with Constitution reform and having the 6 bands all come together monthly is difficult at times, but they're trying. And, if you want information, I know that Cheryl Edwards has said that Fond du Lac has a page, constitutional reform page that they have information on with regards to the meetings. So the information is out there. You just got to want to find it and ask. So everybody's invited to the meetings. And so, this has been a very trying time for everybody. Before you didn't get the ability to have this just hang on, Irene, to have this constitution reform. Now you've got it. And now we've got issues with that. So we're going to keep having issues, but we need to move forward. We're never going to get this document done. Never, if we don't come together and start working together. So Irene, do you have a question? No. Yep. 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 Oh. Oh. Basic. Yeah. And I think what they're trying to do, Irene, and this is just my thought, is that they're just trying to get information out, and they talk about different things at the meetings, and they're giving options or items that people can use to think about how to incorporate or how to develop a new constitution or a new way of how we govern ourselves, or how we have this constitution over us that wasn't written for us. So it is a lot of information, but we really need to start doing something and moving forward. So, you know what? Yeah, it has been, and it's in the hands of the people, like Kevin said. It's in the hands of the people. So we have Carol Jamnick or whoever on Zoom that has her hand up. Is she on there?
I'm here.
Go ahead, dear.
Thank you. I really,
Hey, someone's talking.
I really appreciate the time and ability to speak today. I am the facilitator for the drafting committee. I volunteered a little over 2 years ago, and I've pretty much been the facilitator since the entire time. We meet weekly, almost religiously, given a few times we couldn't meet. Our task was to reform the Constitution and governing system. The committee, prior to my coming forward, had agreed on having an alliance document with 6 different constitutions at the local level. Please look at the website that was stated, fdlconstitutionreform.org. Every single one of our minutes is listed there with our educational information, with our documents, etc. The whole process, total transparency. We have been working extremely hard for 5 or 6 people doing the job there. We have in the past come up with a constitution that removed the Secretary of Interior. But again, the consensus system wouldn't allow us to bring it forward because there was one holdout. So that was not brought forward. We started working on the alliance document. The alliance document is pretty much done. It has to be reviewed and authorized by all of the 6 bands yet. But the alliance document is a document very similar to an alliance like our ancestors had. And that is, you know, we are all coming together. And that's what the meaning of Mamawino, Anishinaabe Nation, also known as Chippewa. Neebs help us with that name. And it means we all are coming together. And it has the little bit of the history, but it has principles and values that we, as the 6 nations, want to follow as a group. And so then when there are issues, we will support each other as an alliance would. It is not a governing document. It is a document to keep us together, such as we were under the MCT. We don't intend to suggest that MCT disappear. We intend that there will be a gap, a bridge to help that gap between MCT and the local constitutions. We don't propose that anybody tells any band what to do in those local constitutions. They will have their own decision-making. So those constitutions are already in process of being written. There's been more education than just 2 pieces of paper. There's been a lot of work done, treaty studied. We've studied the 30%. We studied the Bellic Quantum. We studied the sovereignty. We've had discussions on all of this, which was necessary in order to proceed in a logical, knowledgeable way. My concern is that TEC isn't involved. It was always my concern since I've been beginning, and I'm not sure how it got stuck in the process of not having input. But no, I welcome TEC's input. The questions, they were partially to help us understand how we're going to educate our constituents and how are we going to encourage more, get out the vote. And that was why we asked many of those questions. Are we going at the 30%? Are we going at a past practice situation? Are there going to be waivers? For example, if we're going for a 30% Secretary of Interior, that's a higher standard than registration that the Secretary has in the regulations. So why not request a waiver of that registration? That way, a lot more people will probably vote because they won't forget to register. They won't have to register. If we're going with a past practice, the registration obviously has to stay in there. So those are the things that we get through and we're trying to discuss, etc. And I think we are making a lot of progress. I think you have to look at the posts, please, on the website. One of the issues that we're trying to get at is getting some choices on the secretary election. Other than 3215, we need another choice. And it was our discussion that referendum question number 1 was the most appropriate one to put on there because the second question is confusing. And in my opinion, and I may be wrong, but ordinances cannot change that constitution. I personally would love to have a conversation with Phil about how you strengthen, as you were saying, the current constitution document. I personally don't see it myself, but that's because, you know, I'm not the most knowledgeable person in this field. I'm learning as well. But, so I know that Beth came to one of our conventions and we tried to get information and, the functions and the roles of MCT, and we've tried to reconstruct that so that we can work together. There's no intent to remove anybody. The one big issue, I guess, with MCT would be what's going on with enrollment, but that there's been no decision on that yet. So I just wanted to, give you a little hope that we are on the right path. We've been working hard. We have a lot out there. And it's all posted. So please, if you have any questions, at least for the drafting committee, ask, come to the meetings, etc. If anybody has any questions right now, I'd love to answer them. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Kevin?
Which for that, Carol, I just got one comment.
Sure.
If you see that every way you're turning and the doors are coming up and there's obstacles everywhere, and you can take a look at November 15th, 2015, the final ruling from the BIA requesting that tribes either one of two things, remove the Secretary of Interior from its constitution, or to have a secretary election, to have no more secretary elections. If that were to happen, to have a secretary election, and it were to pass to have no more secretary elections, and that passed, would we not then have to go to the existing ordinances that we have in place for the tribal elections, so you wouldn't have to worry about 30% entitled to vote? Miigwech.
If the Secretary of Interior is removed, you are accurate. Would be tribal election. And obviously that would be a easier hurdle to get over than the 30%. But I don't.
Each individual band then can go back into its referendum processes. That doesn't take anything away. So individual band has the ability to do a referendum within their own confines of the reservation with their own members as a collective piece to move forward with the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution and its revision, correct?
Yes.
Which?
However, our structure incorporates us all together. The alliance, and we'd have to agree to that, and then the individual constitutions would have their own structure.
I think you're missing my point, but miigwech for that. But the alliance hasn't been adopted, so you use what you have existing right now. And a secretary election, to have no more secretary election, doesn't theoretically take the Secretary of Interior out of the Constitution. It removes the secretary election process. So that at that point, you move forward to what you have existing, and that's the Minnesota Chippewa tribal elections that do not require 30% entitled to vote. Miigwech.
Right, and that's one structure to do. It would be a step by step. The other structure that's been suggested is to change it all at once. Put the alliance in, get rid of the IRA constitution, put the alliance in, and institute the tribal constitutions. So there's the split on opinions on that as well. But yes, I agree with you, Kevin. There's one way to do it.
I'm just saying it because if there is a split, you can enact the alliance until that principle is done, right? So you can't enact anything until you get to that point. But the fastest way to that point right now is to have a secretary election. And which I said from the get-go of this, and that's why I kind of upset earlier when I've been talking, I've been saying it over and over, and I'm not the expert on anything. But if you're going to look at the Constitution and do the research, it shows us there's an avenue to do that. So I'm confused on why we're not moving in them structures in that manner instead of just stuck on enrollment.
Okay, the 25 CFR 81 says that we can amend, revoke. So what you're proposing is an amendment to the Constitution. The other side is to a proposal to revoke it all together and then replace it with the alliance and the 6 band constitutions. So that's, a couple ways to do it.
Carol, nobody's disagreeing with you, but
Oh.
if we look at 25 USC and we're going to go do that, we need to look at the exact document that we have right now. And that's all I'm saying. Use the document that exists
Yes.
right now for the strength to move forward. And if it gives us the ability to take a secretary election to remove the secretary elections, we don't have to worry about 30% entitled to vote. I don't understand what the issue is to make a move to get to the point so it's rectified. So honestly, we don't have to hear Chairman Jackson on his point because he's been saying it over and over, right? We don't have to listen to this part of this thing. I'm going, what are we gonna do? Where are we moving for? All I'm throwing out, and again, I'm not an expert. I think you can get legal advice on this and they'll probably tell you the same thing, that you have ability to make an action right now that changes everything, that puts you on the board to change the Constitution in a very effective way, in an expedient way, miigwech.
Yeah,
President Chambers,
here's the,
excuse me, Carol. Apologies, Secretary April McCormick here. I just want to call a point of order. We did introduce legal, and although this is a very robust discussion and important, I believe we need to continue on with the agenda. And so for President Chambers, I'd
Could
just
I
like to
just
call a
ask
point of
him-
order.
could I just ask? I agree. The last secretarial election that we do will have to be either a 30%, or unless legal there, Phil suggests that we could do past practices. We have one more secretary election. If you want to remove them, we still have one more secretary election. According to the Constitution, we need 30% unless, you know, another avenue is determined and the BIA gives us deference to interpret it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much for your comments and your information.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be moving on now with legal with Brodeen and Paulson.
Yeah, thank you, members of the TEC and President Chambers. Just very briefly, two information items that I presented and got approval on from the Legislative Subcommittee. First being a letter to Governor Walz to encourage him to fully fund an SSIS replacement. So the SSIS system is technology that is not working for county and tribal social workers. In his supplemental budget proposal, he included $15 million to help address it, but it needs to be fully funded to the tune of probably 85 more million. In a non-budget year, there's not a lot we can do in terms of, I think 15 million in a supplemental spending is good, but it needs to be entirely revamped. So just an information item that letter is going to go out. I got approval for that yesterday. Secondly, just a note as we go through with tribal elections, I'll always remind you that the main meeting in July is a weird one. Pursuant to the Constitution and bylaws, we have to have a meeting on the first or the second Monday in July. Also in those bylaws, it also states that we'll put or insert and swear in new TEC members at the first meeting after the election. So that's when that's the last date at which TEC members will be sworn in. The bands are free to do what they want to do previous to that, but that's just kind of how it's been. So just a little bit of information relative to that. That's it.
Miigwech, Phil. Okay, next we have old business, Farron Jackson. There you go.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate, all the dialogue that's taking place again here today. And I know it gets kind of testy because we're very passionate people, and we want to do the right thing, under a constitution that's not written in our best interest. I think we can all have a 100% consensus on that part of the deal anyway. So it's always we're always going to have disagreements, even our own family circles, we have disagreements, but there's a thing that we want to practice it's called respectful contrary dialogue, where we can respectfully disagree with one another and still be cordial. Because that's who we are as Indigenous people, and I want to thank Mr. Blackwell for starting us off in a good way, with a good prayer and some good words, some of our oral history teachings, that paved the way to where we are right here today in this room here in Grand Portage. It's important that we know the path that we came to get where we are today. And we also try to look to the future as visionary, Anishinaabe Indigenous people on where we want to be, even beyond the 7 generations that are coming behind us. And we deal with a lot of things together, and they're all so darn important. You talk about climate change, global warming, clean water, and all of the things that are concerning to all of us and rightly should be. That we look at, these things collectively, what can we all do individually to battle climate change? You talk about that, you hear them talking them on TV, they're talking about how important climate change is and how it's here today and what can we do individually and collectively as a body, is what we have to continue to have dialogue on them issues as well. Today, I thank the TEC for getting me on the agenda here for this resolution that we've been talking about for some time now. Something that was put forward in 2015 by the TEC that was voted on and approved 11-0. And it was also reaffirmed in 2023, just as a starting point, not as a finished product, but just as somewhere to get started on this and how we can continue to move forward with the MCD delegation committee to continue to strengthen this. I think enrollment has to be done in phases. There's a couple ways that we're going to have to look at this as we continue on, but just somewhere where we can get started on, take some action. We've all been really immersed in a lot of things as well as the Wilder research. 2013-14 now was done, showing us the direction the MCT was going in and that we're very concerned about that. On Leech Lake, we've had many discussions about this as well. So today, what I'm going to propose, I'm going to call for a motion, and this just pertains to Leech Lake only, and we still want to be a part of the MCT. We still want to be a part of this MCT group until we find out where we're really going to be in the years to come with our reformed constitution that our delegation committee has been working on. And I thank you for working on this, diligently, because I know it's time consuming. And I always got to keep in mind, when we kind of looking to have that 100% consensus, is that an obstacle? Because we know that's probably not going to ever happen. And we have to kind of openly admit that, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but we can improve and we can make drastic improvements on how we want to work as a body. So I'm all for that. But today I want to call for a motion for Leech Lake only to start with resolution 3215, not as a finished product, but as a place where we want to take some action and start on this here. So I want to call a motion for that. I guess I got to ask the TEC permission to do this. I'm asking for a motion and I want to call it to a vote today. So I'm asking for a motion to allow Leech Lake to start with resolution 3215 in our enrollment change for Leech Lake.
So Farron, just a clarification, for the record, you're requesting TC action on a Leech Lake band initiative. And I'm concerned that perhaps having the TEC take action may affect the Leech Lake band's governing body and sovereignty. And so I want to make sure that that I don't know that we need to take a vote on matters of the Leech Lake band in regards to resolution 3215. And so that's my point of clarification, just as a co-TEC member, is that I don't know that I should be voting on that or discussing the matters of the Leech Lake ban there. So respectfully.
Okay, I appreciate that, April. I mean, this is just, like I said, this resolution 3215 would specifically just be for Leech Lake, not any of the other MCT tribes, you know, I mean, that would be all on them. So I still, if you choose to remain silent or not make a decision, I respect that. I respect that. So my motion still stands. I call for a motion to allow Leech Lake to start with resolution 3215.
If I would also just like to make a point of clarification, and I'm sorry I had to step out for a minute, but I would, this is more of maybe a point of order, a point of procedure. Because I know, I support what our Ogama is trying to do for Leech Lake. I support implementation of 3215. I support moving forward. But I also know that we have process and procedure that we need to follow, and that the point of Leech Lake moving forward with 3215 is exercise of sovereignty. And I know that our legal at Leech Lake has drafted a resolution for consideration of the Leech Lake RBC. And just because of some scheduling and some things that didn't get before the RBC, before this meeting. And what I would appreciate is I would appreciate the Leech Lake RBC taking the initiative to exercise the sovereignty on behalf of Leech Lake to implement 3215. And I say that with the utmost respect for Chairman Jackson and all that he's done and all that he's trying to do. And I say that in support of moving forward and exercising sovereignty. I just want to recognize our process or the process that we should be following. And I know that it's not clear the exact steps or the implementation at this point, but I also know we've been waiting for years on this and we want to move forward on it. And so respectfully, I would agree with Secretary Treasurer McCormick and say that this should come back to the Leech Lake RBC as a governing body of Leech Lake and not necessarily a vote of the TEC at this time.
Procedural pieces, I will speak freely what I believe, that it doesn't require a vote from the TEC for individual reservation to look at something and move forward under that principle. If a resolution or something is going to be done in that manner, to move it from there, and if that's what the request, then that can be dealt with at that time. But I don't believe that a vote to move something forward under that manner for individual reservation, I don't believe it requires a vote. Right. I might be wrong. I don't think I am, but I don't believe any way, shape or form that requires a vote for an individual reservation to work on a buildup of something until they get to the point of that buildup, and then that moves it forward under that piece of a resolution. So for clarification, there is a motion on the floor, but I don't believe it needs a motion or second from a vote from the TEC for the Leech Lake government to move forward with that. Fair.
You want to rescind your motion?
Are we gonna vote on it back home? Okay. Okay. All right, thank you,
Yeah. Yep.
Discussion.
sure, Macha.
Oh, okay. Yep. We'll finish your stuff.
For the full secretarial election, I understand that Leech Lake wants to move a lot of people in the community want to vote on something, but maybe before Leech Lake does it, maybe the MCT official channel of the secretarial election is somewhere. That's what the delegates have been wondering last meeting is, where is it? Is it totally stalled? Is the CIA moving it along? So I think that could be a first question before we get to your move there, Eugene. Bill?
Yeah, so it is stalled. The reason it's stalled is because we have different a different viewpoint of what 30% means than the BIA. So when we provided that to the BIA, they requested a written tribal interpretation back confirming that. And that's something that the TEC wasn't interested in doing. So that's where that piece is at. With regard to the request, I don't know how, I don't think it's appropriate for the TEC to weigh in and tell Leech Lake how they're going to implement something, right? So that's a point there. Also, when you say implement 3215 is an amendment to the Constitution. So without an amendment to the Constitution, it's going to be difficult because by its very nature, it's asking to do something that's outside of the Constitution relative to that. But you guys can look at your ordinances. If there's a way you can figure it out in your tribal ordinances, the way that our enrollment works is all enrollment starts at the band and then it comes up through the TEC. So certainly you have quite a bit of latitude there, Chairman Jackson.
So we could legally, what you're stating then, Phil, is that we could legally do it by just changing an ordinance like we did with our election ordinance and just changing an ordinance for the enrollment process?
It depends on the nature of the change. I mean,
Well, like Kevin stated, we're still gonna keep it at 25%. So 1/4, so we're not changing the blood quantum in any way. We're just gonna change how we recognize the 25% Chippewa federally recognized Ojibwe blood.
yeah, and I encourage you to definitely, that's the way in which you could address this quickly. I can't give a preliminary, legal opinion on it, but you guys have attorneys for that as well and that's where your legal work should be done there.
John?
So from what I understand, question under the BIA, the 6 bands are gonna vote on the secretarial election on the 3215. The BIA said you 12 have to define what 30% is. Right, so that's what we've been defining, according to Phil, it's up to the 12 who use up there to decide, are we gonna stick to 30% of all? Or are we gonna go with 30% of registered? So that's what's holding up 3215, correct, Phil?
Absolutely correct. And here's,
That'll hold up every secretarial election in theory until the 12 defines that. So having each band go off and do it maybe as a style or a strategy, but I think the underlying issue of the 12 TEC members defining 30% is gonna keep coming up on the secretarial election day. And if that could get defined, then each lake wouldn't have to go out on their own and do it on their own, kind of like what Mr. Blackwell had defined happened at Whiter a while back. Then that doesn't have to happen that way. It could still be a normal secretarial election, in my opinion.
Just a quick follow-up, Macha. I actually lobby that back to the BIA because we already submitted everything sufficient for them to conduct a secretarial election. And so really they are saying, well, we needed in writing an interpretation. We're saying it's already been contemplated, run the secretarial election. And so respectfully for our BIA officials, the bands collectively as the MCT Tribal Executive Committee is waiting for that secretarial election process. And unfortunately, it's been bogged down by the Bureau wanting an interpretation. So as a tribal leader, I don't believe that I need to provide that to the BIA. They need to do their work. So I just needed to clarify for you. So that's how I feel about it.
so Chairman Dupuy already stated it, but this issue is going to be a germane issue as long as the BIA is involved in our secretarial elections. One option is to amend the current constitution and take them out, replace, or direct in our constitution where matters related to the tribal elections or tribal constitutional amendments will be sent where disputes can be resolved. If you're doing that, the question becomes, are you going to require a 30% threshold of all registered voters? Or are you going to just do it pursuant to the BIA regulations, get them out, and then have the TEC define definitively what 30% means. That would be my recommendation. At the same time, there's other things you can look at, minor things, but that's the cleanest way to do it.
I just have a quick question. I don't know if this question is for Phil or if it's for our BIA officials, but my understanding officially where resolution 3215 was at with the Department of Interior was that it was being submitted to the solicitor for an opinion. And are we beyond that? Has the solicitor issued an opinion? And then what are we waiting for now?
Well, so here's the deal, the communication I got was that the solicitor's opinion is ready, provided that we get a written interpretation. Given how odious and that the written interpretation process has been, we're in a catch-22. So in order to move forward with 3215, we'd have to adopt another tribal interpretation and send that to get the proper solicitor opinion. So another reason why I don't think we should have all that much involvement with the BIA relative to changes in our constitution.
But to go back to your point earlier, if we were to seek an amendment to the Constitution, removing the secretarial election requirement, we would still likely need to do that written interpretation.
No, I'm proposing you go forward with that and just say, okay, BIA, here's your election. We'll do it according to your rules and get them out, and then backfill after that's out. We can adopt something to replace that kind of idea of some oversight in there.
So why would the definition of 32% or 30% matter with 3215, but not matter with removing the Secretary of the Interior?
It's all about convenience. I mean, if you want them in there, and this goes for 3215 too, right? If we find out that the threshold is too high, this goes to the convention's questions. If we find out that it's impossible to get 11,000 people, I don't know, you have the option of living with the current constitution or amending it pursuant to the Secretary of Election regulations.
So, but the question that I'm asking is right now, what's holding up 3215 is a disagreement between what we're saying is 30% and what BIA is saying is 30%. Why would that not be an issue with taking this? If we pass a resolution, say we're requesting Secretary of Interior to call an election to amend the Constitution, and we have the same position, why is that not going to be an issue?
I'm saying you'd have to change your position
Either one.
Yeah,
That was my point. So
Yeah.
either way, if we want to change the Constitution, we're going to have to do an interpretation according to what the BIA is saying.
Can I jump in here real quick? In 1994, the BIA gave deference to everything that happened prior, meaning Tribal Interpretation 180, that gave the body, the Tribal Executive Committee, the only body to interpret its own constitution. That interpretation has been made. To lend you your point about the secretary election, under the final ruling, they've already determined that if a tribe wants to move in that direction, they're not going to stop it, saying that if they want to remove the Secretary of Interior from its own constitution, it's done, or to turn around and have a secretary election to have no more secretary election. To me, there is still a double-edged sword on the whole process, except that piece, because the BIA has already established in its final ruling that they're not going to intervene with any band or tribe who wants to remove the Secretary of Interior from its constitution or have a secretary election to have no more secretary elections. So again, I got to go back to, if we have our own tribal elections that have been going on for many, many years and we know how to run them, to me, it makes sense that that's the direction that we go in. Just my opinion, which.
Can we clean this up a little bit? We did have a motion on the floor.
I just want to ask another question before we do something here, Kathy. Phil, I have a question here. You see that you stated that the solicitor wanted an interpretation. You know, I as Leech Lake, I've never seen a letter from the solicitor. There was anything emailed to the TEC body from what the solicitor's response was?
I can check, but I don't think I received a formal response relative to that. It was more of an interim communication, like, hey, this is ready to go, but we need this. And then I created that. I think in October, I brought that to the legislative and it got nixed. So the formal interpretation part.
I would like to see something like that, because that's an important letter that I would like to look at and have our legal team look at as well. You know, if the solicitor's asking the MCT body for an interpretation, that just seems kind of bizarre to me. You know, because I know, how many times have we had what do you say, four secretarial elections in the history of the MCT? And how many of them met the required 30% of the eligible voters to be validated? You know, that's what I want to know. I mean,
Zero.
have we already set a precedent that, you know, that we're acting like fraudulently, so to speak, because we're not following the Constitution and we're enacting secretarial election issues that didn't meet the required amount of votes, and yet we're still acting on them?
No. So in law, you look at intervening events. So previous to 2018, everything was according to 25 CFR, the Secretary of Election regs. After that, 2018, their final rule, they said, we will give tribes deference relative to what their amendment provisions are in their constitution. So that's the intervening change that gave us the opportunity to say, we think this is what 30% means. What we're hearing from the Constitutional Convention, there's 10 different questions relative to pretty much why are you doing 30% of all registered voters when we've done that previously? I think it's a good question. It's a policy choice that you guys are ultimately have to make, but it's a good question.
If we go in the direction of a secretary election to have no more secretary elections, and why I propose that, the fear of our members are saying there's going to be no protection clause in there. So if you left the Secretary of Interior in place and got rid of the secretary to have no more secretary elections, uniform or Article 4 allows for that uniform election process, which we already have within the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. We're not changing nothing in that manner. We just take advantage of what we have that existed. I know that some people fear that piece for the Secretary of Interior to be removed from our Constitution. And this is why I say that whatever the direction is going to go, that we still have the ability to put ordinances in to strengthen the Constitution, to make the protection clause and put into place like that. And everybody in the room knows that, but a lot of people don't want to go in that direction. But if we don't have anything in place to do that, adopting the alliance or anything else like that, then we're left at the whim. And once we do that, we don't want them to enter back into our structure again. So to me, the simplest thing is to have a secretary election, to have no more secretary elections. We run the elections that we already have established and we've been establishing under Article 4 of the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution. Be great.
Yeah, because I have another question for you, Phil. I know we've made some amendments or changes to the election process, but was that supposed to require a secretary election to make changes in the Constitution in that way? Yeah.
No.
Okay. So why can't we let me go back to that question I asked before. Why can't we just change an ordinance and enrollment and do it in the same process as we change the election or changes, amendments or ordinance, whatever they are? Why can't we use that same process if we're going to revise our enrollment process in recognizing, like Kevin stated earlier, you know, we're not changing the blood quantum. You know, so everything's going to be the same there. It's just that we're going to be putting in there that we want to recognize all federally recognized Chippewa and Ojibwe blood. I don't understand that part. To me, it seems like we're making it a lot more complicated than it has to be.
No, I think it's clear to me, the Constitution says what it says relative to a quarter, right? So if you enact an ordinance that doesn't directly conflict with that, that's fine. However, the problem we have is if the Constitution says a 1/4 degree MCT blood, that's your issue. So if you pass, that's a question of like, can we implement 3215? I don't know how you can implement it without an intervening change to the Constitution to say, okay, here's what makes up, we're no longer, here's what makes up MCT blood, is what I'm saying. So when your request came, can the MCT give Leech Lake permission to do this? We can't give any band permission to do something in violation of the Constitution. So, but that's why I'm saying you have to go back and figure out how you can operate in there and make it still work in a way that shows that this is still in line with the Constitution.
Well, doesn't our current constitution say that all Chippewa blood?
That's what it says.
Outside of it.
So what you're saying then is we could start today with recognizing Red Lake Ojibwe blood as a starting point.
If you get the right, if you get it set up the right way, I think you can do it. It's arguable that fits within there. That's a creative way. The more direct way is to amend it, but if you want to get creative with that respect, I don't think a lot of people in this room are saying Red Lake blood shouldn't be counted, right? I think what we're talking about is finding a way around these things, and that seems like an appropriate solution if your band wants to explore that.
Is Patty Obi still here? Patty, can you come up here for a minute? I have a question for you. If an action's made today by the body and it goes into a point of a discussion of another secretary election principle, how soon can that be done? So it's not an interpretation principle, so the BIA can't question the interpretation. If we go back to the final ruling and say an action was made by the body today for the final ruling, how long would that take?
You think on that? Let me think on that. I would have to get back to our tribal operations officer. I would think that we would be able to act pretty quickly. But as far as exact timelines, I'm not equipped to answer that today. But I could get back to you as soon as I get back to the office or make a few phone calls. Maybe even today I could get you a definite answer on that. That's fair enough. Yep.
So just one other thing real quick. If 30% entitled to vote is the question that's there for any secretary election, that 30% entitled to vote is going to be used for its initiate. So an action by the body would have to happen today to move forward. These are only my opinions, to move forward with that to address the 30% entitled to vote. If it's strictly 30% entitled to vote on Article 12, that argument can happen on the other end with the BIA on the 30% entitled to vote. So that would have to be addressed there also. So that would be the 30% entitled to vote or 30% of the registered voters. So that is still going to be a question that's in the whim. But I think that once whatever is going to be done, how this movement forward, especially for the Constitution and delegations to move forward, expedient with things is to remove the election process with the Secretary of Interior. In my opinion, because anything else comes back as an election by the individual band at that time or the tribe as collective. So, which.
Yeah, and this is nothing to Patty, but I'm always encouraged to take the BIA out of processes if they're defining what tribal law means, which they are here. I think I'm in favor of taking them out of the process, and I think they would agree that they don't want to be in the process for this very reason. So that's something that we can think about.
May I ask a question too? This Patty Olby, so with Heidi Gordon being your new superintendent, and I have fallen off of this radar back in 2019. So I'm out of date on where all the work that you have done from 2019 going forward. if we could maybe just schedule a meeting with you, Phil, and just get a status update so Heidi is more equipped to answer these questions, because I think maybe it'll come upon her at the next meeting.
Yeah, and I think to get Chairman Jackson's information that he wants, his written information, that's a good next step. So let's do that, and that's how we'll kind of go.
Thank you, Patty.
Okay, I just want to rescind my motion 3215 today. I wanna make a motion that we move to remove the Secretary of Interior.
No.
No.
Secretary election.
I'm sorry, Secretary Elections. Mhm.
To amend the constitution.
To amend the Constitution. So I'm calling a motion on that today.
I'll second.
Motion by Farren. Second by Lenny. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, do you want a discussion, Kevin?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I gotta report to my delegation, my elders here. We all do. Before we make these motions in seconds, I gotta report to my people back here. All my members.
Well, Mike, if you guys choose to remain silent today, that would be okay. You don't want to vote, you don't have to vote. That's the way we're set up here at a TEC level.
Yeah, but you can't.
Nope.
Can't act like this, Farron. You can't think that you can just throw motions out there and just think that just because we're at some type of threshold where we have to take action like immediately. We don't have to. We got a plan. There's checks and balances here. We have to figure this out. I'm not saying it has to be done today. What about the next meeting? Can we bring it up at the next meeting? I gotta talk to my delegation and my elders that are here, plus the rest of all of our members across White Earth. I have to report back to them. It is something I respect all of us here, but we're not at a point where I'm just saying that we can bring it back to the next meeting.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded, so we're gonna call for a vote and then we'll go from there. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed. Silent?
Silent.
Did someone say silent? Was that Sheldon?
And myself as well.
Sheldon, Melanie,
Silent.
hold on, hang on. Sheldon, Melanie, Mike, LaRock. Who else was there?
April and Tara.
Tara.
Anybody else?
Me.
Oh, April. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, silent. Did I get it right? How does that work? Okay. Kevin?
Fond du Lac is a question, but we're at a point where, it moved forward after the second, and I think that's what a second is for, is to have a conversation and the voting started. Aye. Aye.
Fond du Lac says aye. Motion carries.
I do have a question and comment.
Hang on, question here and then question there.
When a vote is made and a motion is made in a second, the second gives the opportunity at that point in time for discussion, like Chairman Jackson did. I think that discussion piece has to continue in that manner. I understand the process, but we have to hear, and I'm not, that's Whiter's opinion, that's his opinion, how he feels about that. And I think that's gonna carry across, but when we do an action in this way, when we are this mixed with it, to move on this, we should get to a point where it's gonna probably or hopefully be unanimous across the board under that manner, because what we're showing our membership right now is their mix on the issue and the simplicity, and I'm not against anything, because I think goes, but the simplicity is this, and can I speak freely? I'm not saying everybody, can I speak freely? This has been brought up for years. Right here, years. And I don't know how many administrations we sat through this and bringing up the same thing, that you have the ability to do something within the Interior Department and make it work for the band or the tribe as a whole, but also expedite simple principles of change that could have happened under that manner, and have our membership vote through the electoral process that the Minnesota Chippewa tribe has already. I just want to make that clear and concise, that going through the minutes and looking at the minutes over the years, how many times this has been brought up to a point where we're sitting here today, and we wouldn't have to be doing it. I'm not saying anybody follow me. That's not what this is. But to look, everybody has attorneys, everybody has legal opinions and principles like that. This is carried on for many, many years, and we could have adjusted this a long time ago. And now we're adjusting it today, and no disrespect to anybody here, but I would really hope that if we make a motion in a second this way, that this is something that unanimous across the board. And I just want to say that because we are going to get questions. We are going to get questions from our tribal members under that manner. To simply say we're going to have a secretary election to get rid of a secretary election, to me, that makes all the sense in the world for us to move forward. So we're not locked in this vacuum since we've been since 1964. But at the same point in time, I think Chairman Fairbanks's point is he has a right and an ability to take that back, just like any other several votes that happened with the TEC, where the individual tribal leaders have stated that I want to take that back home before we make a decision. And I just need to say that for clarity at this point in time, but it is what it is, which.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, sir. You had a question? And then we have two people online. Basically, what it is to have a secretarial election, to remove the secretarial election process, and have the definition of the 30%. No, no, it hasn't. We've got Carol online and Deborah first. They've been having their hands up for a while, so hold on. Go ahead, Carol. We, just as an FYI, we have, please make your comments short. The Grand Portage Tribal Council has a funeral at 11. And so Please make your comments short because we do have one more presentation before we move on.
Thank you.
Carol?
Yes, thank you. I just have one question. You're so efficient that you got past me, but this question goes back to the change in the Constitution in you know, blood quantum versus such. Can I ask Phil, what is the hierarchy? We have the Treaty of 1847 that says half or mixed blood are considered Chippewa. And then we have the 1936 IRA Constitution that has the blood quantum in it. How do we see the treaty hierarchy in this? Who the Constitution of the United States says is the supreme law of the nation. So when we're dealing with enrollment issues, can we go back to the treaty and say that is the supreme law and it overrides the IRA Constitution? Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. I like the creativeness of the question, but the simple answer is that if a people adopt a governing document and it's a constitution, that's going to be the supreme for purposes of what's covered in there. So specifically enrollment, it's pretty clear what the requirements for tribal enrollment are. The fact that they may differ from some annuity requirements in the treaties, I think you see that all over the place. So
Okay.
the Constitution is the one that is the one we'd look for this.
Thank you.
Deborah, online?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
So my question was to Patty Olby. Since is she still in there?
She's not in the room right now.
Ah,
You want to wait just a few seconds? We'll take two other questions.
yes, until she comes back in. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay. All right.
Also, we can't hear the people making comments, so it would be great if we could hear them.
Okay, I'll sit by you, okay? I think my mic is on when it's.
This is Patty Straub from White Earth, and I just wanted to make comment that, you know, this topic, the removal of the secretarial election, you know, that when we discussed that, had this conversation, that we thought that if that's removed, what are our safeguards? You know, we don't want it to be political. And, you know, we need to think about that, the future ramifications of this. So that is, I just wanted to bring that up and, you know, we did talk about it. I mean, and this may happen and stuff, but we need to get those answers before we probably, you know, go forward with it. Miigwech.
Okay, so, hi, I'm Mikey Brown from White Earth Constitution Reform Delegation. Okay. And what our job is we go out and have conversations with community members, get their input, give them, or ask for their input, give them information. And then we come together and meet every so often as a White Earth delegation, and then we later meet as an MCT delegation. So in one of our meetings, we had this exact conversation as a White Earth delegation, and a lot of the common concerns was the safeguards and ramifications of doing this. So that would be a question I have, is what would those be? And that's the only reason, oh yeah, and then that's the only reason like we would be, we think it's a risk. We think the risks might outweigh the benefits in this, with this, but we don't we need more information on that. And, yeah, well, I just to ask like what you would say are the ramifications and would there be a way to put in safeguards following the removal of it?
Yeah, the answer is yes, you absolutely need safeguards. So we're not talking about creating a vacuum in which there's no oversight of constitutional amendments. What we're talking about is creating a tribal mechanism that isn't involved with the BIA. For instance, we have tribal elections every 2 years that each band designates one judge to sit on that board for that election to take some of the internal band politics out of it if there's a challenge to there. That seems perfectly suited for resolving some of these issues if there are issues with constitutional amendments. So I'm not talking about just saying, take them away and there's no oversight. No, but I think that needs to be tribal oversight. Those need to be people who are familiar with, you know, how voting works on reservations and things like that. And I think our tribal elections, for better or worse, do run fairly orderly in terms of that. So I would say we need to build a mechanism to replace whatever was there with as an equally robust mechanism, but make sure that the people who are making decisions or dealing with challenges, that those are tribal based folks.
Phil, can I ask a question? So it's my understanding, and it was my understanding of the motion that I seconded, that the request was to make a simple amendment, and we didn't get into this much detail, but it's my understanding that the intent was to make a simple amendment to Article 12, which only deals with the amendment to the Constitution process. The Secretary's role in Article 5, Article 6, Article 10, Article 14, or 15, excuse me, remain in place. And so there still is a role in oversight that the Secretary would have, but the requirement to hold a secretarial election to amend the Constitution is the only thing that this motion would be addressed. So in terms of governance and in terms of a check on the TEC and RBCs, that there would still be that, not oversight, check might be too small a word, but at least that there's still a role for the Secretary to play, but just not in terms of what we say our Constitution is.
That's correct. Yeah. And one thing to note, I mean, talking about like the actual, like to trigger this, we need a resolution to trigger it. So I don't know if this is this an instruction for me to? Is that clear? I need to know if that's clear from, so this is an instruction for me to bring a resolution in July on this issue. That would be the triggering mechanism for this process. Okay. So okay, that's clear to me. Thank you very much.
Sally?
Thank you very much, because you know, that's one of the things that we hassle with all the time is why do we, the people, ask the federal government for permission to do anything? Miigwech.
Okay, go
Can I-
ahead,
Can I
Kevin.
make one quick statement, and could I get a hands in the audience for the ones that know? Can anybody tell me where the Secretary of Interior has protected our document? That's all I want to know, Miigwech, because back in the day when we had a lot of people were called radicals and dissidents, petitions and stuff would go to the Interior Department, and the Interior Department would turn around and say, you need to deal with that. It's an intertribal matter. It's an intertribal matter. It's an intertribal matter. And I think by doing this with the secretarial election process opens that door. It doesn't change. There's not taking any securities out of it. Like Lenny said, especially Article 15 in the manner and review. They're definitely going to look at that under that piece to ensure that them things aren't going to be lost. And to Phil's point, and to what I said earlier, we still have the ability to strengthen the Constitution and protect that structure just by simple ordinances, but we choose not to go into that direction quite a bit. But this is a forced action where we have no choice to put the safeguards and principles, and that's gonna go with the principles of the membership to have their input on it. I think, like I said, I was the first one to say that we need to ensure that the document, whether we agree with this document or not, that safeguard principle is there to some extent. The Secretary of Interior has not been removed from the Constitution. That's not what the vote was. The vote was to simply so us to maintain our internal election process that we have and to do it as a tribal piece in that manner instead of having the Interior Department as a so-called oversight to stop things. We got to remember the last time we did this, it took 18 months for the Interior Department to make a decision at that manner. 18 months when they're required under law. We're required to follow a structure, and we did follow that structure. They didn't have to follow the structure that they had. So 18 months later. So when we talk about a vacuum piece, and just real quick, and I understand everybody's concern, I think that when we missed the thought process of saying the Interior Department did this, the Interior Department took 18 months, why would we want to go back to that structure piece and allow them to make a decision on behalf of the band or tribe that's exercising the quasi-sovereign status that we have within the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution? We're not changing that principle. We're not taking that security piece out of the Constitution. All we're doing is taking Article 4 and applying Article 4 the way that exists in the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Constitution for a uniform election process. That's all that's doing. We're taking that piece, that thing, and exercising that and taking the election process out of the Secretary of Interior. Miigwech.
Go ahead, Billy.
Now, the reservations, blacks, I think is ahead of everyone on this, very good. The land on a reservation is owned and held in trust by who? Answer it.
Both, it depends, both the band and the MCT,
Who is above that? Trust land,
the federal government.
the federal government. That's why, I'm saying is coming later. Why can't the tribe, if we can get legislation that the bands own the land, it's not in trust of the federal government, that's the next step.
It's Billy. Okay, Deborah. Oh, Mike LaRock.
All right, I just want to, make a clarification on my end, I mean, everybody's talking from their heart today, and I know they are, but I mean, when this first came up, and I listened to Chairman Dupas talk about this issue, one of the things that I did when I first got on the TEC is that we vowed to not spin our wheels, and it seems like that's what we do a lot. We do a lot of spinning our wheels, and we don't, we meet every week quarterly, and we seem like we're going over the same issues over and over and over again. And I just don't like that. I don't like when they do that. So when I voted silent on this issue, I didn't vote against it. I'm just saying that and I agree with Chairman Fairbanks that yes, we need to go back to our ban and look at it. And, nevertheless, it's passing anyway. But I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for us to move forward and quit spinning our wheels. And that's what, I just wanted to make that statement quick. I respect our constitutional delegates. I do. I respect all their, what they have to offer to us and all that. But that's one of the things that I would just like to convey to the, to the people and to this TEC is that we need to quit spinning our wheels and we need to start moving forward. Miigwech.
Oh,
Miigwech, Mike. Thank you for that. Okay, Patty is in. Deborah, do you have a question for Patty? She just came in.
Bonjour, Patty. My question was when Kevin asked you the question and you referred it to somebody else, tribal liaison, that has to answer his question. How come that person isn't here then?
Yeah, just to be clear, Patty's in Bloomington. What we're talking about is probably an issue with the new folks that are in Bemidji.
Okay, so I made a quick phone call and got some answers. So, and I wasn't, so I missed part of that meeting, in the discussion. So how long would it take? How long would it take to act? Once we have a complete application or a complete request, we have 90 days. The clock starts ticking from a complete, and I think Phil, you have that. I just talked to Cheryl Lapointe. Another thing is, I had questioned her because these are the pieces that I'm missing from when I left in 19. Was the interpretation question on the 30% eligible or um, or registered voters. And I said, why are we questioning that? Where is this coming from? And she said, and I said, well, how are we interpreting that, meaning BIA right now? And what she said was, we are interpreting it to be 30% eligible voters because that was on an incoming letter of requesting the election. So the question is that attainable? Which is more attainable? So, and then looking back at the interpretations, and I think Kevin brought that up just recently on who's to interpret. BIA doesn't interpret your constitution, so that's why we're asking for an interpretation. And then that piece could move forward. As far as removing the secretary from secretarial elections or from the amending the constitution, that would require that same interpretation too. However, I did get information that if we looked at 81.2C, Phil, there's something there that we could possibly get by without having that interpretation, or maybe that interpretation for this specific secretarial election to remove the secretary only, that it would apply to that only, and then once we're gone, we're gone. So okay, perfect.
Together and figure it out where we go from there.
Okay.
Can't hear you, Phil.
I said, we need a meeting with the BIA to further discuss. So thank you.
All right, thank you. So that the short answer, 90 days is the timeline that we have to act once we have everything. Another piece of information before I forget is that if you were to move forward and wanted to wait and handle the enrollment piece on the tribal side without secretary, if that's the way you decide to go, those resolutions in front of BIA right now would have to be rescinded to request another secretary election to remove the secretary. And I just wanted that was a very important piece that I got from Cheryl.
And the question is, where is that at? Where's that written at? Or what is the, because if I get it, but also if we're prioritizing constitutional changes and we say this one should be prioritized first pursuant to your instruction in 2018, it makes no sense why we would rescind the old ones.
Well, if you're requesting to remove, if you want us removed from the Constitution and.
Yeah, no, it becomes a
Yeah.
nullity at that point. So I don't think we need to rescind it if you're removed from the Constitution.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that would be where we bring Cheryl.
I can, yeah, I can go
Yeah.
through that because it's not, I don't think it's not necessary at all to rescind. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay, now we're gonna move on to new business. We have Eli Dotson, Adam Fairbanks with Prime West. Are they in here? Oh, there they are. Hi, guys. Welcome, Adam. Go ahead.
Bonjour everyone, Wabajation Indigenous Cause, Makwa Indudame, Gabo Babagana Kog and Dunjaba, Kabakang and Dad. Like this? Got it, okay. All right, so I'm here to talk about Prime West Health today. I've been doing work as a health consultant for them, representing American Indian Health for the last couple of years. My work there has really been about advising Prime West around how to create benefits for Native Americans, and also just how to do some equity work with our people. I'm a White Earth band member myself, know many of you, but for those who don't, my name is Adam Fairbanks. This first page, I'm just gonna go over the top section. I'm gonna introduce Eli, and this is really about Eli and him meeting you guys and having an opportunity to hopefully come and speak to you guys directly. But for those of you just very high level, Minnesota Medicaid has both a fee for service through straight medical assistance plans or managed care plans, which are still Medicaid plans, but administered by an insurance company. And so Eli here, he works for Prime West Health, which is one of the Medicaid plan administrators. And they have some cool stuff that he's going to go over. But as a Medicaid plan, they have all the same basic benefits as medical assistance or MA, which you are probably familiar with. It also, because they're Medicaid, even though somebody may be on Prime West, one of our members, tribal health reimbursement is still submitted to DHS. So you guys still are eligible for that encounter rate, but people can be on these managed care plans without interfering with that. So it's an important point to make. What's nice about that though is some of these managed care plans will have things like better transportation programs or supplemental benefits or things that are provided on top of what straight medical assistance would offer. So 75% of people are on managed care, 25% are on straight medical assistance. We probably have more people on straight medical assistance. I think a lot of tribes put people on straight Medicaid or MA. So, but yeah, so I'm just here to introduce Eli Dots. He's the tribal liaison. I don't know if that's his exact title, but essentially that's what he does for Prime West. So again, this is an introduction to all of you. I hope that each of you will give him a chance to come and speak to your council directly and talk about how Prime West may be able to assist your tribal members. So Miigwech.
Thank you, Adam. Like Adam said, my name's Eli Dots. I'm Prime West Health Equity Manager. Part of my role through Prime West is to act as a tribal liaison. I lead all of their internal DEI efforts, and I'm also working on their external health equity matters. So part of we service 24 counties out of the 87 in Minnesota, primarily in the southwest, west central area. And then we also get some of that northwest area where we have Leash Lake, Red Lake, and White Earth. We operate kind of like we function the same way as private insurance, but we also own by all 24 counties that we service. Something that makes us unique is we're looking at healthcare from 4 dimensions. We're looking primarily at how can we improve our members' healthcare experience. We're looking at improving our members' population health. We're looking at achieving health equity across all of our member population. And how do we improve the value of healthcare for our members? Everyone at the table here has received a little handout here. Prime West Health, we're located in Alexandria, Minnesota. Again, we service 24 counties. Our enrollment as of January 2024, we had 58,424 members. We have 191 employees, so we're small compared to Blue Cross, UCare, all those other plans. Our provider network contains more than 15,000 contracted providers. Healthcare and claims process as of 2023, we're over 2 million in that 1 year. And we do those all internally. We don't outsource any of it. Some added value, Prime West Health is given out over $20 million in grants since 2003. And so part of those grants this last year has been, how can we advance health equity within the counties that we service? And there's a lot of cool initiatives out there. And part of my role is to bring back what can we provide to our members that are also tribal members as well. So like Adam said, this is just an introduction. I'd love to meet with all of you, get more ideas on how we can start looking at more culturally tailored benefits for our American Indian members. Thank you for your time.
I just want to add a couple of things. Eli is a Minnesota Chippewa tribe member, so just want to point that out.
Yes, I'm a Boys for Band member.
Thank you. And then also just mention a couple of the benefits that he brought up. One was mailing out traditional medicines to elders. So Prime West did that for people under, I can't remember which plans it was, but some folks under certain plans received that. And then they're also working on a supplemental food benefit for people who qualify under certain plans. Elders with diabetes is in the group. I'm not gonna say an exact dollar amount, but it's over $100 a month for that supplemental food benefit for elders. It's a lot, yeah. So that would be above and beyond if they're receiving any sort of SNAP or other sort of supplemental food. So, and I know that Prime West is talking with the Red Lake Food, what do they call it, Traders Market up there, to try to create a contract so that the food can be purchased from their businesses for their members that are receiving the benefit. So I know Leech Lake owns a grocery store. I know most of you all have trading posts. So, you know, if this benefit would benefit your folks and you're part of the kind of geographic area that Prime West covers, it would definitely be something to explore with Eli during a meeting. Miigwech.
I got a question. I'm trying to look through the literature here, but what are the costs, are the cost to for this health insurance programs? I mean, you know, when we always kind of wonder about, you know, treaty tribes, you know, tribal nations throughout Indian country, you know, part of the treaty agreements, what I understood was that, you know, that the tribal members were supposed to be provided with health care, you know, at healthcare through ceding billions of acres away, you know, for housing needs and education and healthcare. And now we have a lot of our tribal members now that are having to pay for their own healthcare, you know, and it just kind of seems like, I don't know, it's like, I think maybe the tribes have to kind of lobby more to kind of have, you know, the government, abide by the treaty agreements that you're supposed to pay for healthcare, quality healthcare for tribal people, you know, in Indian country. So they don't, there's so many of our people now that got so many outstanding medical bills that's actually ruining their credit, you know, and it's kind of going, you know, I mean, even myself, you know, I have health care through work. My wife has Medicaid. And then we have our IHS at payer of last resort. This is kind of similar with healthcare issues. I know might be off the track a little bit, but some of these health providers, they're always disputing on who's the first payer for healthcare. I mean, that's going, and, you know, members on Leech Lake approach council and say, you know, I have healthcare I take through work. You know, my wife is on Social Security and has Medicaid A and B, and we got our last payer of resort for at IHS, and yet still a lot of these bills are not getting paid and they're getting sent to collection agencies. And that's kind of a thing that, I know this is not really, your issue, but I just thought I'd bring it up to bring more awareness to these issues that healthcare issues that our tribal people are dealing with today.
Thank you for that. I can bring that back to the company and let them know your concerns.
Is there any, just one question, is there any, you're only in certain areas. Is there any way that you might move more towards the rest of the state?
You know, that's in the grand scheme of things, that'd be great if we could, but then that would also have to involve our sovereignty within our tribes, because each county is kind of designated, you know, certain plans that are within those counties. So ideally, that's where I would love for us to be able to kind of get to that point where we can be the plan for all Minnesota Chippewa tribes, or all tribes in Minnesota, period.
That would be a good question for DHS, to talk about tribes being able to be eligible as a jurisdiction for these insurance plans. Because right now it's county-based. And so if, or even MCT for that matter, could say all MCT tribes could choose their plan that they prefer to work with. Because you have your straight medical assistance, but these plans every 4 years, they compete for the counties. And so, Beltrami is Prime Weston Blue Cross, and I think UCare is more up in this area, Blue Cross and UCare. So, tribes should have say, I think, in the plans that they choose to work with. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that point, because we are sovereign nations and we should be able to choose our own plans within our boundaries. So wonderful. Any other questions or comments for the young gentleman? Nope. Well, thank you guys for coming up and presenting today, and we appreciate it very much. No, we gotta do it now. Okay, for everybody's, right now, we're just gonna acknowledge that this is Melanie Benjamin's last meeting. She will be, going on and retiring and enjoying life and traveling, but we want to say Chimigwichto for the, last, 24 years that you've given us. And we want to say, we wish you well, Melanie, and thanks so much for all your help and dedication to the MCT.
Miigwech, and just want to say that it's been an honor to work with all the elected officials over the last 24 years. A lot of talented individuals, and just the commitment that the elected officials have to the people is something that we all should be proud of. And I guess just to always recognize and remember that each of us are inherent sovereigns. And that's what our governance needs to be focused on. But yeah, enjoyed it. So miigwech.
Okay, no. We have a motion to adjourn by Lenny at 11:10. Is there a second? Second by Mike LaRock.
Can I make one
Oh,
statement? real
yes, you
quick?
can. Oh,
Just-
no, go ahead.
I-
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
No, that's not good.
Go ahead.
The gentlemen that were up, and I apologize, I had to go outside and get on the phone, but I think some of the stuff they're talking about is we need to get together as a body and seriously look at, oh, you did? All right, my bad, forget it.
Deal.
Thanks, Kevin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. Miigwech, everybody. Drive safely home.
Yeah.